All right. Hey, Shalom.
Shalom.
Shalom. First and foremost, we want to give all praises, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rachakwadash, and double honors unto the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, and as well as the men that taught them, and peace and blessings to all you walking out there who pushing his word with all truth and sincerity, and as well as to all you believers out there who believe on the gospel. And it's a couple of brothers from the Great Millstone, Houston camp or the Houston church. I'm the brother Korah Abad, and as always, we got the beloved of the Tazapah as well.
Shalom.
Khan. And the Wadi Hawabashim Al Shah for blessing us with another opportunity, to be able to come forth and bring forth this news, the prophecies, which again, as the apostles, brothers always say, as we get to these end times, this is gonna be the most important thing. That's why when Yahweh Shai came on earth, it was many things. It was many things Yahweh Shai could have focused on, worried about, right, talked about. But it says the testimony of the Lord, right, was all about prophecy, man. He was all about prophecy, and that's what his men will be about today. And it's beautiful to watch the Lord word play out, as we have been taught from our teachers, the apostles, bishops, elders of Great Millstone Brothers, so on and so forth. But not just that, teaching it ourselves. And it was just, in the past, I'm sure that Tazapah, you can attest to it better than I can, but it was years to you know, y'all probably was saying, the MOTB is the RFID micro C here, but it wasn't as much proof. You know, you had to get somewhere in the club. I forget what that club was. That was on that sign. The people had the MOTB
Yeah,
Spain.
Baja.
Yeah,
Yeah, Con. Yeah, no, you got
kind, in Spain, but that was the
right.
only example that was really used. It wasn't many, but now we see when these times, hey, the MOTB on mainstream media now, and not just in hands no more, but hands and heads. You see, World War III, it's
Yeah,
all these things that the apostles and his prophets, the Lord's prophets, have been speaking about in times past is now playing out. I'm talking about all of them playing out, in our lifetime right now as we speak, man. All of them playing out. Like I said, Judah, if you got some other types of pie?
no, this is going back to what you were saying. Right? You had the club in Baja, Spain. I don't remember the name of it, but we didn't have many examples. We had Obamacare was big. When it came out, maybe 2012, somewhere around there, and it had language within Obamacare, to be fitted with I want to say class 1 medical device, which is talking about a microchip. And it was, lean back. I believe lean back with Fat Joe. He actually, they showed him operating the elevator, by waving his hand, but yeah, it was more and more. It wasn't like it is now, but it was growing, back then. But the proof was there. It wasn't as much as we have now because, we're in that time. Any day now, they could just mandate it. That's how
Mm-hmm.
close we are. All right. When it get down to the mandating. But yeah, you're right. It wasn't as much back then as it is now. But when you had an eye salve, you see it,
Yep.
and that's what the prophets, were giving those who believe the eye salve. We didn't need. I mean, you got Edomites and heathens going into, the MOTB being a microchip. You know, it ain't really. Even back then, it wasn't super dark. Saying it wasn't a super dark saying. You could put it together if you had to. That's why I say, let him that hath wisdom, count the number of the beast.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, but you got it, brother.
Con. Now you all good. That's on point. I got a real quick precept. Just to go into all the prophecies already, and maybe in time past, It was just, the Israelites waking up. That was a part of prophecy that was happening, but it wasn't so much World War III talks and missiles ready and, or American allies separating. Or you might
Yeah.
have not had as many earthquakes in diverse places at the time. Or if you had those things, the economy probably was doing good. So it wasn't to the point to a civil war was about to be, you know, called had in the streets, so on and so forth. But we're in that point in time where literally all the prophecies are happening. All of them happen at the same exact time. This Jude 9 and 5, it says, and this is talking about the Heavenly Father. It says, for thou, right, the Most High Yahweh says, for thou has wrought not only those things, but also the things which fell out before and which ensued after. Thou hast thought upon the things which are now and which are to come. So ultimately, she's saying, look, everything that happened in the past, that's happening now, and the things that's going to happen in the future is all by you. It says, yeah, what things? It says, yeah, what things thou didst determine were ready at hand. And that's the prophecies. All these things that we have been waiting on have been the determination of the Lord. To have these things brought Esau to get exposed, the MOTB to come forth, the Israelites to wake up, World War III, all these different things that needed to take place. Earthquakes, even Yahweh Shai prophets, earthquakes in diverse places, wars, rumors. We hearing rumors. Got a quick one right here.
Yeah.
Trump pump faking again. And this hot off the presser. This was 4 minutes ago. Well, now it's 23 minutes ago, right? 23 minutes ago. Because remember, he said the other day, he said the other day, so Iran, y'all got 48 hours to open this Strait of Hormuz. If y'all don't, in which this comment is gonna go into the lesson. But I'm a obliterate. That's what he said. I'm gonna obliterate y'all power plants, you know, and pretty much, y'all oil infrastructure, so on and so forth. And Iran responded and said, if you do that, then we gonna obliterate y'all's here in the Middle East and Israel's and your allies over here. So Trump backed off and he came out and said, well, yeah, the only reason I ain't gonna do it in 48 hours, I'm gonna call it off because they had called me. Iran called me, we talked, we on the same page, we gonna hold off. Iran responded, said nobody talked to you. Nobody, no, we never talked. Was no mediary in between us, nobody talked. So now
Yeah,
what you can't.
they ain't having no talks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you got it.
And you seen Iran just dropped the video. I thought I sent it to myself. I wanted to have it up. But they did a little AI video of shooting a missile over here at America. And as it was in the air, it had all not all because they didn't have everyone, but American victims looking at the missile go over. And it was like the Native Americans, the Palestinians, all the different nations, Libya. But But anyway, Iran said, yeah, it ain't gonna be talks, we going to war. So now Trump gonna say, he said today right here, Trump says Iran asked him for 7-day energy strike pause, and he agreed to 10 days. Right. So
Mhm.
it says Donald Trump says Iran asked him for a pause of 7 days on striking energy plants, but he gave him 10. And he said they was very thankful. And we know he lying. He lying.
Yeah, that's all they do.
That's all he do.
But yeah, and this is a rumor too, but the Valero plant in Port Arthur had an explosion, and they trying to tie that to Iran. And I don't know what went on there, but it's not the Valero, but another one in Port Arthur. That's one of the biggest or the biggest. They said that Iran had threatened to hit or something after Trump was talking that noise, what he was going to do. And this explosion happened a few days ago. And we what, an hour from Port Arthur, maybe, hour and some change, maybe less. And you don't hear much on it. But yeah, it's definitely an attack on the energy infrastructure, not just in America, but for the world. You know, that's going to put everybody in the dark ages. but I know that's, you know, where you're going with it. So I'm gonna just let you finish.
Now I'm gonna back you up right here. It was yeah, Valero refinery in Port Arthur, a oil
Con.
refinery.
What's the get a people to date?
So like it was March 24th. Well, this happened. The article was put out yesterday, but I think this happened the 23rd, if I'm not
Okay.
mistaken. Let me see.
What that was? Monday?
Let me get
No, that was over the weekend.
Wednesday, I think.
I don't even have a
Yeah, I think it was
2026.
Wednesday though.
Yesterday was
Yeah, it's 2
25th.
days ago. So that was
Yeah, Monday.
yeah, Monday.
I'm not tripping.
Monday. Yeah, Monday. Monday.
Mhm.
Yeah, by seeing it said Monday. It says a large explosion at a oil refinery near the Texas coast on Monday shot plumes of smoke into the air, and it goes on. But it was Monday.
But yeah, you know when
But I'll read this real quick to
we in
finish
the
this, and we
book.
can hop in.
All right, you got it. Go ahead.
Kind of, I finish this real quick. Judah 9:5, it says, verse 6, talking about the prophecies. Yeah, what things thou didst determine were ready at hand, and said, Lo, we are here. For all thy ways are prepared, and thy judgments are in thy foreknowledge. So everything that we've been waiting on to happen, as far as the prophecies, they happen in live time, all of them. So we'll hop into it now. Now we'll play this real quick. I know we all heard of this already, but TSA agents, I mean ICE agents, been replacing TSA in airports, and this all a part of the plan. And this is Esau's gradual way before he have to do it with real power of putting a strangle, a hold on the American people. You know, and before times really get hard, and that's why we go see more troops. Remember, troops been here, but more troops, even in the airports, when people start getting upset and not feeling the current restrictions, you already gonna have people, soldiers ready right there if anything pop off. Right? So airports everywhere, and this is a part of locking it down, making it harder for the people. But let's go ahead and play a little bit of it.
Mm.
For more than a month, and it's at this point the Department of Homeland Security has been shut down for more than a month, and it's not clear exactly when it's going to reopen. The TSA has been one of the biggest agencies that has been impacted by the lack of DHS funding.
More than 50,000 TSA officers are working without their regular paychecks, and it's been more than a month.
This is day 39. This has got to stop.
The chaos at our airports is simply unacceptable.
In some cases, the airports are
That's
telling
not
people to show up
poetic
4
justice.
hours before their flights, including for domestic flights. So it has been a very frustrating experience.
Recently, Trump decided to start sending ICE agents into airports to act as TSA agents. That has been a very new development, so we're still seeing exactly how that's going.
These disruptions are happening during spring break. There's a lot of people traveling. It's a big moneymaker for airlines, for hotels, and a lot of movement around the country.
It's a beautiful.
What the Trump
Beautiful
administration is saying is they're deploying these ICE agents to airports to help security lines move along. I'm here at Los Angeles International Airport. Behind me, if you could look in the distance, that's a TSA security line. Starting this week, we are also seeing ICE agents at some airports. I have not personally seen any at Los Angeles International Airport today. I didn't see any at JFK earlier today, but we have had reports that they are in the New York City area. They are at Newark, Atlanta, and some other of the major hubs. We've heard some reports that they could potentially check IDs. But this has been a little bit controversial. We heard AFGE, which is the union for TSA officials, saying that this isn't appropriate because ICE agents are not trained the way TSA officers are to check IDs and do some of their other duties.
I'm stationed out of O'Hare Airport, and I know for a fact that we had the ICE agents at the exit doing DO, and they were actually in the baggage areas yesterday. I just have a message for Washington. Pay us. Stop holding us hostage.
So for a while, you saw lawmakers not really engaging and negotiating with each other. That has changed in recent weeks, especially as we've seen these lines in TSA pick up. Senate Majority Leader John Thune is now pitching a proposal to the White House to fund all of the Department of Homeland Security with the exception of ICE. Democrats laid out basically a list of demands that they wanted to see for reforms when it came to ICE. You saw border czar Tom Homan come in and that ICE surge in Minneapolis. And you've seen Trump's pick to lead the Department of Homeland Security, Markwayne Mullin, actually say during his confirmation hearing that he would be open to ensuring that there are judicial warrants that are gotten when ICE agents are going after targeted individuals. Trump has said that he does not want ICE agents at airports to be masked. So you can see that he's trying to maybe take a slightly different approach to ICE agents being in airports. At this point, it's not clear exactly how much longer the stalemate's going to go on.
Right. So, and you see that don't matter if they're masked or not.
What is your name?
It's
Where's your badge and
the same tactics.
number?
The video has gone viral. A woman who the Department of Homeland Security identified as Guatemalan Angelina Lopez Jimenez being handcuffed by two men. That's when Andre Ivanov started rolling on his cell phone.
The ICE agents didn't have.
Right. But so you have that going on. And also now it's been reported yesterday, March 24th, CDC issues global travel notice as dengue fever reaches America. Dengue, the water. It says as dengue fever reaches Americas. So now as you have ICE agents already there, who knows if they may crack down even more, they could use this. It's talking about a brain bleed. It says urgent warnings have been issued for travelers heading to multiple countries over spiraling outbreaks of a mosquito-borne disease that can cause brain bleeds. So now it's here in Americas. So we'll see what can happen with that. There's gonna be many other diseases, so on and so forth. But again, this goes into, in other words, shit, you got to think about it this way. Trump, the government even beginning to put boots on the ground right now in America itself. It ain't just talking about going to Iran. They already putting boots on the ground here for America to detain you people when things get, when chaos ensue. Because again,
no, that's why the scriptures say, "I will remove far from you the northern army." So they go into the Middle East. So it's letting you know that it's gonna have, like you say, boots on the ground here. But at a certain time, and with this draft coming, everybody going to the Middle East except for a few, and they've extended the draft, which Apostle Tahar went into, is now to 42.
Yeah.
And a lot of the exemptions that were before, well, if you had, well, still felonies, no, but certain misdemeanors, they just let them fly. And a lot of other things, because, right, everybody going to, that's a fighting age, and not in this truth, you going to the Middle East, But yeah, you got it out. And then I got one.
Now you could bring it out then. I was about to hop into this article.
Oh yeah, because that's a perfect illustration, what I was gonna say with the TSA of the nature of tyranny. That's the perfect illustration. TSA was used to take rights and strip the rights of people and treat people inhumane and without dignity, going through people's luggage, naked body scanners and all of that. Man, don't you know in the 70s, you just buy a ticket and get on the plane?
I didn't know that.
Or maybe the 60s, but yeah, all that changed, like even maybe up to the early 80s. I would have to look into that, but at one point you could just get a ticket like getting on the bus and hop on the plane. But right, then TSA after 9/11 was installed to take away the people's rights. Now they want people to cry for them because they're being replaced by another tyrannical organization, agency, ICE. And they don't like it. Well, that's the nature of tyranny. It doesn't stop. And if we are here long enough, you'll see ICE replaced. dissolved, criminalized. That's the nature of tyranny. This is Isaiah 19:14. The Lord had mingled a perverse spirit in the midst thereof, and they have caused Egypt to err in every work thereof, as a drunken man staggereth in his vomit. Neither shall there be any work for Egypt, which the head or tail, branch or rush may do. All right. So TSA, basically out of a job. I saw one post where one so-called black woman got a check of $4.27. That's essentially unemployment. Well, slavery. I don't know. Are they working or are they not working?
Mm-hmm.
They working and not being paid, or they just completely been sidelined?
Yeah, I think they completely been sidelined, like they're not getting paid either because I seen some come out today said Elon Musk, which is all a show, but Elon Musk said he willing to pay all the TSA agents so they can get back to work, but it said the government declined it. So I don't think they're getting paid either because they're not getting paid, they ain't going to work, you know. So
That
only
makes
like a
sense.
handful.
I got you. But that was it, brother. You got it.
Con. So we'll read this real quick. Now, this from naturalnews.com put out 3 days ago, on the 23rd. But it's a nice little article. It says, if the American people were told the truth about what's coming, they will lose their minds. And that's true. These people ain't ready for the so-called white man to finally reveal and show that he's the devil.
No, that's too much of culture shock for a lot of people. Mm-hmm.
That's it. It says and then it's gonna shock a lot of people once everything really happened and it get down to that point of lockdowns again and that pressure being put on the people. It still really ain't gonna hit them because Esau go, man, how he gonna set them up and give them maybe incentives, stimulus checks. And again, as Elder Tyler Pye is talk about blackouts and everybody going into their houses, it make more sense. I'm gonna say this again. Why that Grand Theft Auto 6 coming out in a few more months?
Mm-hmm.
People about to sit at home. But
Right.
just like that movie, Ready Player One.
You're right. That's it.
Yeah. But I read it. It says, Slaki.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
It says the panic feared by the globalist controllers isn't over a battlefield loss, but over citizens realizing their banks, pantries, and gas tanks are about to fail. When the Strait of Hormuz, the aorta of global, I gotta see what that means. The aorta of global energy. Aorta means the main and largest artery in the human body. So it says when the Strait of Hormuz, the aorta of global energy, is closed or threatened, the entire just-in-time economic model vaporizes. This isn't theory, it's logistical reality. The lie of everything is fine is meant to prevent a run on banks and grocery stores until the moment control is irrevocably lost. And Trump been lying, but people starting to realize that he's blatantly lying. The government is blatantly lying. Things ain't going as you said and as good as you talking about it is, man.
Yeah. And keeping people in the dark about the real of the war, about what's really going on. Purposely keeping people in the dark. And once people really realize what all is going on, it's gonna be too much. Because basically the trap will be sprung at that time. Most of these people, these NPCs out here, Mort mains, they're not gonna wake up till the trap is sprung. And then they looking at programmable money.
It says, and they have no plan for the Hormuz humiliation, just as they had no real plan for the health of the citizens after Chernobyl. It says the coming lockdowns, right? It says CV-19 was just a drill. And that's what the prophets have been saying. It's a drill.
That's right.
You know, it was a test run just to see how the people react, what they can get away with, how far they can, to push the limits, and not just that, as keeping these people, especially these so-called American, these, the freedom, all about freedom and rights. How long can we, keep them locked down, but not just as the people was locked down, all what they was doing behind the scenes, bringing that digital system. They got a lot done in a test run. And I know El Dariala always mention this, but when you think about it, it's true. QR codes, just going into a restaurant and you have to do the QR code on your phone and pull up the menu. That wasn't always like that before CV-19. It was, the old school menus. Now you got to ask for a menu. A lot of things did change. Oh, curbside pickup. What else it is? When you pick up, curbside pickup, working from home. You was about to say something, Salagia?
No, I was just saying, yep.
Working from home, a lot of things really did change in that first go round. The thing is, now that we coming to something greater than that CV-19 lockdown, the whole thing is about to change. Esau got a ticket there, and I gotta get the house scripture real quick at the top of Paul. There's Revelation 12:12. It says, "Therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you great wrath, because he knoweth that he have but a short time." And that devil is talking about the so-called white man. Not nobody under the ground, the pitchfork in a red spandex suit. It's not talking about that. It says the devil, the so-called white man, know he got a short time to rule. He ain't got no more time for a test run like the CV-19. You got to do it now, man.
That's right.
So it says, it says the CV lockdowns were a desensitization exercise, a psychological operation to test mass obedience for the real crisis. And man, see a lot of people singing this song now on this tune, but again, at the times of power, man, brothers been saying that though, but everybody's starting to try to take a hold of prophecy and speak prophecy.
Right.
That's what the world is focused on now. That's what's happening. You got it?
No, I was just agreeing.
It says for the real crisis. It was to test mass obedience for the real crisis. Energy and supply chain lockdowns. That's the real crisis. Energy and supply chain lockdowns. We were conditioned to accept the stripping of basic freedoms for a proclaimed greater good. Now that template is being readied for deployment against a failure that they themselves engineered. And when you're going to engineer, that's something that was built, created, designed.
Yep.
And that's what it's saying, Micah 2. I believe it's Micah 2 or 5 and 2, something. But it's in Micah when it says it was in the power of their hands to do so.
Yes, 2.
But it said 2 the water.
Yep.
Water. It says plans for alternating license plate travel permission, ground air travel, and digital rationing aren't dystopian fiction. They are the logical next steps when a centralized system fails. So it's going digital. It says a science paper on the logistics of food supply after radioactive fallout outlines the nightmarish challenges of feeding a population when distribution networks are severed. Is mean cut off. It says the script. Now here it is. The script for the next crisis is clear. Create and exploit artificial scarcity to force compliance with, and that's that with is so important, to force compliance with this, similar to he calls us all. It says to force compliance with digital rationing and central bank digital currency, CBDCs, and the ultimate grid control. They tested our compliance with masks and QR codes. The real exam is coming, and that's where we at. That's where we at to lead to that digital system, a CBDC system. And what a coincidence right now that Trump came out and said 48 hours and made a scene on Earth. 48 hours, I'm going to attack y'all power grid, power plants. Right? And Iran said, we're going to attack y'all's and Israel's and the allies. So now the focus is, oh my God, power plants may be destroyed now and on top of the Strait of Hormuz, which gives them way to never let a good crisis go to waste. People mind on the infrastructure, the power plants being attacked. Well, let's just cut it off and act like it's been attacked. Or we could just fake it like 911 again and really send a missile. You know, send a drone.
Yep.
You know?
I got that Micah though.
Con, you got it, Zaquan.
This is Micah chapter 2, verse 1. Woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. When the morning is light, they practice it because it is in the power of their hand. Verse 2, and they covet fields and take them by violence, and houses and take them away. So they oppress a man and his house, even a man and his heritage. All right, speaking about Esau. All right, so as the priest read Revelation 12 and 12, all right, the devil has come down into you having great wrath. All right, this is him, Esau, Edom. And he's devised great iniquity to ensnare the people. All right, and this coming in the form of technology by way of a microchip.
That's right.
Yeah, I'll read this. This is Job 5, verse 12. It says, he disappointed the devices of the crafty so that their hands cannot perform their enterprise. All right, Esau's enterprise is a one world order under his rule. All right. Yeah, I'll read that again. Job 5 and 12. He disappointed the devices of the crafty so their hands cannot perform their enterprise. All right. I'm gonna go to enterprise right quick in the Greek.
Okay.
Oh shit, just a second.
Tushia. Strong's H 8454. Tushia. Tushia.
All right, Tushia says in outline of biblical usage, wisdom, sound knowledge, success, sound or efficient wisdom, abiding success. 1A, sound or efficient wisdom. 1B, abiding success in parentheses of the effect of sound wisdom. All right. And notice it said that they cannot perform their enterprise, which lines up with I'm gonna go to Job 18 and 5 real quick. Because basically Esau's time is up. This is Job chapter 18, verse 5. All right. It says, yea, the light of the wicked shall be put out, and the spark of his fire shall not shine. All right. The light being their knowledge and understanding. All right. Their wisdom. And that's why they will not be able, the Most High is going to upset them in their devices that their hands cannot perform their enterprise. All right. Verse 6, it says, the light shall be dark in his tabernacle, and his candle shall be put out with him. All right. So he's getting ready to be put out. Now, this is why when you read Isaiah 14 and 12, it says, or the Most High asked the question, okay, sarcastically, how art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer? All right. Basically, how's your light put out? Because Lucifer means light bearer. All right, he's falling from heaven because the Heavenly Father is getting ready to extinguish his light. All right, so the same trap he's setting for the world, and first and foremost, the children of Israel, is the same snare that's gonna catch him. But that was it right there, brother. You got it.
We'll read this real quick and we can play that these last few videos. But again, going into how I said right here, the coming lockdown, CV was just a drill. And that's true. I'm gonna read this one more time. It says the script for the next crisis, and that's what they talking about. The script for the next crisis is clear: create or exploit artificial scarcity to force or cause all to force total compliance with digital rationing and central bank digital currencies. Right now, all of a sudden, you had this come out yesterday, 2 days ago. End time headlines: emergency playbook for worldwide crisis quietly released. Get ready for lockdown 2.0. So they're actually talking about it coming. It says the quiet release of an emergency energy playbook has sparked global concern, with some warning to get ready for lockdown 2.0 if fuel shortages worsen. The guidance comes from International Energy Agency, IEA, which last week released its report Sheltering from Oil Shocks, outlining 10 steps countries could take if supplies tighten. The report was issued in response to the ongoing conflict in the Middle East, which has all but choked off traffic through the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most critical oil routes, triggering fears of prolonged shortages and soaring fuel prices. And it goes on to say, among the recommendations, expanding remote work where possible. So they said remote work where possible, reduce highway speed limits, and cutting off. You know what? We'll just play these videos because it's going to say it in these videos. You know, so we're going to play these vids. Now it's going to go into the same thing. So they're calling it lockdown 2.0. Now this is a video from Steve Peters Network. And he got this guy called, I think, Jeff Berwick, if I'm not mistaken, Jeff Berwick. Now they're going to talk for a little bit, but it says Iran blackout and oil shock, energy lockdown, and World War III begins. Let me know if you got some tools, Quan, as it's playing.
With the Hodge women, nothing has been off limits. That tweet, there's not a light on and talking about hitting critical infrastructure that's not committed. These crimes against humanity were being committed. The world just wasn't watching. But of course, in a post-October 7 world, every single day we have watched as these people have steamrolled the West Bank and Gaza. They have blown up children, women. Nothing has been off limits. Churches, libraries, schools. We've talked about this before. And now we're talking about hitting critical infrastructure that's necessary to preserve human life. Water desalination plants, energy and electric facilities. Cuba's lights, by the way, are completely off, totally dark. I tweeted that last evening when it broke that Cuba was just, there's not a light on in Cuba. Woke up this morning, over 4 million people had seen that tweet. And that is obviously the MO. That is status quo for the tribe. And of course, their favorite power bottom, Zion Donnie Trumpenstein, is carrying all this out as he threatens to just blow everything up. And, you know, look, there was this 5-day grace period that Trump gave. I know what that is. Everybody knows what that is, or you should know what that is. And what that is it is a delay until Friday. So somebody looked at it and said, hey, you gave that 48-hour warning. You're going to blow up critical infrastructure and commit war crimes on a Monday when the market is open. You can't do that. Hold on. That's got to be done on a Friday after the market closes. Okay. So he gave the 5-day grace period and the clock is ticking. And now in the sights are these water desalination plants and critical infrastructure like electricity and energy. And of course, like we're seeing in Cuba with all of the lights off, you will soon see in Iran. And a lot of people have been programmed and actually believe that Iran is some isolated third world hole, some backwater nation. It's not, you know, filled with low IQ goat herders on camels hiding in caves, because that's the picture that we have been programmed to believe that is the Middle East since the war on terror, Desert Shield, Desert Storm, shock and awe. That's who we were chasing all throughout Afghanistan for 2 decades. You know, cavemen, terrorists, towelheads, the sand people. Well, in fact, Iran is actually an Aryan state. It is a Persian nation. It is a civilized society. It's technologically advanced. Tehran, their capital city, is larger than New York. And, now we are going to carpet bomb that, and we're going to shut off the light and the energy, the electricity, and the water to hundreds of millions potentially of people. So this is going to bring, obviously, unprecedented catastrophe and suffering and death to the region. Jeff Berwick has been looking into all of this. He joins us now. Thanks a lot for coming back. First featured guest back after being gone.
And I got the speed of the video on 1.25. Y'all let me know if it's too fast.
On spring break, I enjoyed myself on the beach with the kids, nothing extravagant. Then came back, did a little mudding in the snow. We escaped a 2-foot in 20-hour snowstorm with 70-mile-an-hour gusts. Came back in time for Minnesota to be a balmy 60 and then 80 degrees. So anyway, I'm living vicariously. I'm closing my eye. I'm imagining still being on this vacation. But here we are. It's all hitting the fan now. The world is on fire.
Yeah, they're not giving us any breaks this year, which is what I expected. I expected this year was going to be absolute chaos, and it already has. It started, of course, with the kidnapping of Maduro, and now they've moved on to this. And this is far bigger than most people have any idea about. This already is probably the biggest event since World War II, with all of the oil infrastructure that's already been taken out and the natural gas infrastructure in numerous countries, including Iran, Qatar, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, even Israel had their major oil refinery blown up recently. Then on top of that, just 2 days ago, the Ukraine's back and they bombed Russia's one of its largest oil facilities. Then, of course, just yesterday, the Port Arthur facility in the U.S., one of the largest oil refiners in the U.S., was on fire. So this is becoming very clear now. This is going to be their energy lockdowns, their oil shock crisis, that they'll be locking down the world again. They actually already have in places like what I call Australia, because Australia was locked down for years and brutally beaten if they even left their house. And they've already, the supermarket shelves are already almost empty, and they're actually running out of diesel already. And many parts of Asia are already like that as well. And this is just beginning. This, as you mentioned, they're planning on doing much more, probably later this week. That will, with everything that's already been taken out, we're talking about 20 million barrels of oil of the Strait of Hormuz isn't moving. Then there's all these facilities I mentioned, there's numerous of them. They're all around 500,000 barrels a day, which adds up to millions of barrels a day. All that's offline right now. So even with that alone, if you look back to the oil crisis in the 1970s, which was pretty massive, that was 4 million barrels a day of oil went offline. Now we're talking 25 million barrels a day. So about 5 times or more, my math isn't that good because I went to a government indoctrination camp, but 6 times, I think, bigger than what happened in the 70s. And if anyone was around in the 70s, which I kind of was as a young child, it was chaos. It was mass inflation. That's what we're going to see as well, because oil and things like that are involved in basically everything in the modern world today. So we're going to see massive inflation. We're going to see oil shortages, energy blackouts. They already started that in Cuba, which they did on purpose, which they wouldn't let ships come in with oil. Now Cuba, the entire island, is without electricity. They're talking about doing that in Iran. And this is coming to most places on earth. This is their next big thing. This is the biggest thing since the COVIDs, which they did 5 years ago, which of course Donald Trump was heavily involved in with Operation Warp Speed. And he also increased the debt more than any US president in history during that time when he tried.
Right now, if I could add too real quick, but yeah, Trump was the one. People try to blame Biden for the juice jabs, but remember, Trump was the one that really turned that up. He came with Operation Warp Speed, had people get juice in a short amount of time. And remember, if he did that, and even that was a trial run, and they seen if it worked, because Trump is the front man. Everybody believe it as far as Americans, but the thing is, if he did that for Operation Warp Speed and they got a short time now, he gonna be the man that's gonna allow this thing to go fast now. That's how they looking at it. Trump gonna be the man that's used, man, as it's looking like. You want to add on to that, Pop, before we continue?
No, you good, brother.
Come.
Kill everyone in the US. And now he's basically the front man for a massive, massive depopulation event, because not only is it the oil and the gas that is massively just gone now, it's just gone. That is a big part of fertilizer. And actually, a lot of the fertilizer comes from that region in the Middle East, a lot of the nitrogen and the sulfur and things like that. So we're going to actually see a massive drop in fertilizer, massive increase in the price of energy.
That's one of the things that Catherine Austin Fitz had brought up about the fertilizer. And you're right, the crops, yeah, it's about to get bad. They don't have the fertilizer to grow the crops. The planting season, the harvest, well, not the harvest, but the sowing season is here. All right. And there's a shortage of fertilizer. Catherine Austin Fitz was breaking that down beautifully, and how this Trump was brought in to usher in this technocracy. That's why, he was chosen by the elites to implement this technocracy. And she spoke about how he brought in all the tech giants. But yeah, he's speaking on that. I'm glad he brought that up because yeah, Catherine was saying the same thing. It's the stage is set for a famine, massive famine. All right. But yeah, you got it out.
Time. Keep playing it.
And that's going to lead to massively reduced food supplies in the coming year or two, which will probably cause a mass depopulation event, probably into the billions.
Hold on a second. When you say things like this, I don't think people, because you've been studying this for a really long time. You know all these things. You can rattle.
He said a mass depop event. That's what we're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
But that was
no problem. I don't think that people are really.
Play it back a little bit.
Event, because not only is it the oil and the gas that is massively just gone now, it's just gone. That is a big part of fertilizer, and actually a lot of the fertilizer comes from that region in the Middle East, a lot of the nitrogen and the sulfur and things like that. So we're going to actually see a massive drop in fertilizer, massive increase in the price of energy. And that's going to lead to massively reduced food supplies in the coming year or two, which will probably cause a mass depopulation event, probably into the billions.
Hold on a second. When you say things like this, I don't think people, because you've been studying this for a really long time. You know all these things. You can rattle these things off. No problem. I don't think that people are really ready for what it is that you're explaining, which I believe is accurate, that is about to hit, not just in these, isolated third world backwaters, not just in Iran, not just in the Middle East, not Russia, not China. You think those countries are going to allow themselves to fall? This is going to happen here. And I don't think that people are really, truly ready. Explain exactly what this means. You're talking about massive shortages, massive outages. Explain the everyday life of an American under the conditions that are quickly moving their way this direction.
Well, we're going to see massively rising oil prices. I think the price of oil right now should be around $200 to $300 a barrel, just based on all the supply that's been lost. It's currently around 100, and actually it went down recently because Trump said there was peace talks, which he totally lied about, and they actually made hundreds of millions of dollars buying longs on the stock market and shorting oil just minutes before that, like they always do.
It's just so brazen. I mean, these people they have to know that stuff can be tracked, that people can see that.
Well, that doesn't matter. They control the SEC. None of those people ever get taken out, of course. They try to kill everyone in the U.S. with the vaccines. Has anyone ever looked into that? And I should point out, most of this is actually really ramping up because, and I said this before, they will blow up the world before they'll allow all that Epstein file stuff to come out. And what happened? They finally put out, some decent amount. They still redacted a lot of it. And then soon after, no one's talking about it anymore because we're basically headed into World War III now. And that is part of what they're doing. They're going to depopulate the earth. So for your average person in the U.S. is already on the brink of economic catastrophe. Most of your average people are living paycheck to paycheck. You see it nonstop on TikTok. People can barely afford food, and that's the same in all Western countries today. Once the price of oil and gas and things like that go up dramatically, which they will, you'll see the price of food doubling in price, things like that. Most people won't be able to afford it. You'll see I think they're not even close to being done yet at all with what they're doing with all this oil stuff. So they're going to wipe out even more of that stuff. And that's going to basically lead to shortages. If you can get oil, it's going to be 2, 3, 4, 5 times higher than it currently is. Most people can't afford that. So you're going to see a complete financial and economic collapse. This is all part of, I put in my book, the controlled demolition, which I talked about how they've actually been putting this into place for the last 100 years. And this is one of the final stages. So you're going to see basically everything collapse. You're going to see all stock markets, all bond markets, all banks, all financial industry, everything just basically collapse. We're basically heading towards, by far, easily the biggest.
I'm gonna play that back one more time, and I'm gonna let Klaus Schwab speak because that's
event in human history in the next year or two.
That's exactly what's happening. They're about to collapse everything and restart this system, man. And Klaus Schwab said this year. He said this around 2020 when CV19 hit. He said CV19 that was a little test run. We come up with something harder. And if they got plans for 2030 for everything to be finalized, done, and established, and a new world order is like here, they have to start now, man. They don't have much time. And that's what they think in their mind they're going to have it done by 2030. And even the lawyer said he's going to shorten the time. But I'm gonna play it back real quick, and I'm gonna let Klaus Schwab speak.
At all with what they're doing with all this oil stuff. So they're going to wipe out even more of that stuff. And that's going to basically lead to shortages. If you can get oil, it's going to be 2, 3, 4, 5 times higher than it currently is. Most people can't afford that. So you're going to see a complete financial and economic collapse. This is all part of what I put in my book, the controlled demolition, which I talked about how they've actually been putting this into place for the last 100 years. And this is one of the final stages. So you're going to see basically everything collapse. You're going to see all stock markets, all bond markets, all banks, all financial industry, everything just basically collapse. We're basically heading towards, by far, easily the biggest event in human history in the next year or two. And you can see no power, things like that. Of course, there's ways to protect yourself, obviously.
The biggest event. Let's play this real quick. Now, this is Klaus Schwab, and it says cyber attack worse than CV.
Our reliance on digital services and infrastructure has exponentially increased due to the unprecedented connectivity which we have established now. From the adoption of large-scale working from home arrangements to the use.
So, like, I'm gonna blow this up some because I know it's hard for him to hear, but if you look, it got the captions at the bottom. So, if you can't hear, just kind of try to read that as he's speaking, I'm gonna play it back.
Our reliance on digital services and infrastructure has exponentially increased due to the unprecedented connectivity which we have established now. From the adoption of large-scale working from home arrangements to the use of cloud services, e-commerce, e-health, e-education. Many tech leaders have noted that within a couple of months, we achieved such advancements in digital transformation that would have taken us 2, maybe 3, maybe even more years. This paradigm shift to digital has made the role of cybersecurity as a global public good even more pronounced. We all know, but still pay insufficient attention to the frightening scenario of a comprehensive cyber attack, which would bring to a complete halt to the power supply, transportation, hospital services, our society as a whole. The COVID-19 crisis would be seen in this respect as a small disturbance in comparison to a major cyber attack. Our existing fragmented global architecture is not fit anymore for purpose in the 21st century. It's high time for a great reset. Change is not happening. We have a choice to stay passive and see the negative trends unravel. Inequality, polarization, nationalism, racism. If we do not stop those trends, will lead to a post-corona world that definitively is less sustainable, less equal, and much more fragile. On the other hand, we can instead use our time to reimagine our world and build a new social contract. We need a great reset that will shape a much more resilient system for the post-corona era.
Man, he said a whole lot. Advertiser Pie, you want to speak on it?
No, you got it, brother.
I mean, it was pretty much, self-explanatory. But what he said was that this new world that they want to create, the old 21st century infrastructure ain't good enough no more. They got to move past that. And he said, so we need another crisis. And he said, what CV19 was, that's going to seem like, a small disturbance. And think about how that shaped the world. And, it was supposed to be 2 weeks or so, but no, that was some years. 2 years.
Oh, yeah.
But it shaped the world, changed the world. He said e-commerce, school education, everything changed, whatever, right? But the thing is, he said, now we need something greater than that to change this whole infrastructure, the ground up now. Everything got to change. from people being their own person, you know, independent and all this, all that got to change. So now we need something that's worse. And the thing he said was a cyber attack. And that's what they've been talking about, attacking, you know, with the war, they're using that. Well, we're going to attack your power plant. Well, we're going to attack your power plant. Well, we're going to hit your infrastructure. We're going to shoot one on yours, right? That opens doors for false FLAGSs. Or if they really do happen, I'm going to read this real quick because he's talking about that, but it's also written right here that was put out today before we started the lesson, end time headlines. Now they are warning that the electrical grid is at increasing risk of blackouts due to surging demand. So it's happening right now. What he was talking about 5 years ago.
As Americans feel the shock of higher gas prices at the pump, there's another energy crisis brewing across the country, but the people who actually run the electrical grid issuing stark warnings. For 100 years, America's electrical system.
Oh, and you know how this been said across the world, or it's blackouts in Cuba, blackouts in Iran. They is coming to America, man.
Mostly stable, with blackouts being the rare exception. But when they do happen, they can have exceptional consequences.
The situation here in Brownsville was described as anarchy, war, rioting.
Every source of power that the state of Texas has been compromised.
Now a new combination of the latest artificial intelligence data centers and aging power plants is creating a perfect storm, from the big city to the Great Plains.
Becoming more of a challenge across the whole eastern part of the United States.
Rich Dewey oversees NISO, which runs the grid in New York.
Rich, you say the grid is at an inflection point. What does that mean?
Really, it's a confluence of a number of different factors. So we're on the cusp of really new technologies coming onto the grid, and it's really got us concerned about our ability to meet reliability for not only for New York City, but for the state as a whole.
Dewey says on a peak day, the demand is 32 to 33,000 megawatts. Now they have proposals for 13,000 more megawatts in demand for AI alone, a nearly 50% increase.
At a time of significant load growth, we're actually retiring more generation that we're building, and that gives us some concerns.
New York is connected to about half of the country through the Eastern Interconnection, and Dewey says everyone is talking about the problem.
What we're seeing is the story in New York is a very similar story across all the other regions.
Another grid operator called PJM handles power in 13 states and D.C. They say they've got the same problems. They're letting new data centers connect only if they bring their own power plants online too, or they have to agree to power down when the grid gets stressed.
Right. So that, you know, that's the grid is weak. America's grid is weak, you know. And the main point is that's what they focus on right now. We're gonna play this too, but we'll wind it down right here. This in the description box as well. It's kind of like little compilation videos of people explaining it. But you had anything else to Tazapar?
I just say, you know, that shows how they're gonna get rid of the vehicles. Because you know they could just quit manufacturing at least the you know, the gasoline, gas, and diesel. But you know, for people that say, well, I don't want a new car anyway, I'm good with my old car. Well, if they quit making the gas, what you gonna do? You know, and then they'll outlaw it, you know, of course. They're gonna make it a felon to drive a gas or diesel vehicle. But if you're privileged, you could have an EV. If you're, you know, if you're compliant, they might allow you to have an EV. But yeah, it's on top of the all the chaos that we just been talking about. What Klaus Schwab is saying, you know, this next lockdown is going to be worse because they got these engineered natural disasters coming, like famine, and of course they're gonna have, you know, storms. You know, who knows what this hurricane season gonna look like? But of course they're gonna be using the storms, so they just gonna layer it on. It's gonna be like a disaster lasagna around the world, but mainly here in America. All right, it's gonna be. Y'all gonna wish y'all had listened to the prophets, you know, because despite what IUIC went up there and told you, you know, the bishop, we ain't skipping to no kingdom. There's a reason why the scriptures say that the righteous shall scarcely be
A
saved.
new global
You know, it's gonna get ugly. But you got it out.
Nah, that's it. That's it. That's spot on. I'll play like a couple more seconds because he said we're going into that second phase, and that's it.
So, how much of this is actually being created, right? Especially with that oil refinery in Texas as well. They're trying. This is basically, we're all under attack right now. The world, humanity is under attack, and the world's going to change massively. This is 100 times bigger. Schwab, Satan Klaus, as I call him, said what's going to happen.
So like, let me play it back a little bit.
They're trying. This is basically, we're all under attack right now. The world, humanity is under attack, and the world's going to change massively. This is 100 times bigger than the COVID, and this is what Klaus Schwab, Satan Klaus, as I call him, said what's going to happen. He said the cyber attacks, which we actually haven't even fully had yet, they're going to be doing that as well. And they keep warning they're going to be doing that. Will make the COVID-19 look like a minor disturbance, and that's what we're in now. We're in the second phase of their massive event, and your average person has no clue, and they really should be. There's so many ways they should be getting ready right now, and I don't see many people doing it.
Boom. So, hey, consider ourselves blessed, man. The Lord open up our eyes to see these things. You got it?
No, I just said, con, brother. Man.
Con. As it's actively happening, the Lord allowed us to see it play out, you know. But I'll read this real quick from Bamalak, and that's pretty much it. Shalom to all the Akim Akwa that's tuning in as well. Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shabrak Thumb. But this Acts 14 and 22, it says, it says, yeah, Bamalak, he be getting busy. Acts 14 and 22. It says, confirming the souls of the disciples and exhorting them to continue in the faith. And this is part of confirming the souls. You know, as apostles do daily lessons, brothers, you know, do daily lessons, you know, also the news lessons, these news lessons and the edification that comes through the news is helpful because it confirms what we into. You know, as we see these things play out, it confirms our faith, what we believe in, you know, and make us want to keep going. You see, allow us to be more rooted and grounded because we actually, man, it was once upon a time, you know, Yahweh said, blessed are those who see and who believe and not even see. We coming to the times that is obvious now. So it's like, as we've been in this thing, believing without seeing it like that, now that we've seen it, we should be more rooted and grounded going forth, you know, bringing out information, daily edification. It says, and exhorting them to continue in the faith. And that we must, through much tribulation, enter into the kingdom of the Most High, you know. So we do got a lot ahead of us, you know. It's gonna be uncomfortable. Even for us in the truth, it's gonna be uncomfortable. It might be feel uncertain, but at the end of the day, we know what's the end goal and how all these things should play out. We know why it's happening, who's doing it, and what's gonna be the end game. A man go come from the sky on a UFO to put an end to all of it. And we want that to happen. So it's some type of comfort in that. You know, and as long as we do this work, the Lord see gonna spare us do these things, man. But that was it, Elder Pa, you know.
And I just say this to speak to the power of Babylon. I say the nations have drunken of her wine and the nations are mad. You know, I figured out, or just recently found out why Trump just blatantly lied about the war. And the Stu Peters video hinted on it when he said, you know why Trump said 5 days. Because if he do it during the week, anytime during the week, especially on Monday, it's going to affect the markets. And this is why Trump has to get up there and lie to everybody, because that's the power of Babylon. His word affects the global markets. And yeah, that's power, but this is what I say about the destructive nature of capitalism. The people here in the capitalistic trick bag. If you got a nation where they have to lie to the people to protect the markets because it's a capitalistic system, then it is no wonder you got allegedly 42,000 cases of HIV over spring break in Houston. You know, it's no wonder you see women, well, in the first shutdown, becoming millionaires just for getting naked. That's all you know, maybe not so much the STDs, but this is I guess, destructive nature of capitalism. You know, I guess, I don't know if you could flaw capitalism itself or just the people that's running the system. But it's, yeah, man, you can't even get truth out of this place. Russia last year had been told their people to prepare, maybe even longer than that. Iran and their people, shit, they already know, you know, we need to be ready at any time. And here in America, bro, this World War III, people don't, like, in a trance. They in this Babylonian trance. So they just go about their life. You know, it's like, oh yeah, I know about it. Yeah. Cause it ain't, as you were saying, you know, we've been believing in it without seeing it. And now that we see it, it's a big deal to us. But these people, as long as they still got their gas, you know, they'll complain that the price is high, but they're gonna buy it until they can't afford it, you know. This is the most docile sheep, like, even, I don't even want to put that on sheep. This is the most docile people has to be ever in the history of humanity. You know, but right, if you think about capitalism, and I'm let it go, but that's what destroyed education. Is why you can't get real health care. You go to the doctor, Lord forbid, you got to go to the hospital. That's all capital driven. So you think they're gonna do what's in your best interest for your health, or they gonna do what's in best interest of their pocket? And it's the same. It's why people go into college, which is, you know, mention the education. You go into college hopeful, and you come out in debt. Capitalism, bro. And but right, this ain't that something though?
Mm-hmm.
The man have to lie. He has to lie. Oh yeah, we doing good. Yeah, we hitting it, Iran, harder than they ever been hit in their entire history. Keep the market stable because they're trying to control demo the economy. They don't want to you know, they don't want it to crash before they get all their ducks in a row. So yeah, the Trump is here to mitigate that shit. But yeah, that was it. That was it. But yeah, that's why you got to get up there and lie, and be watching over the weekends because that's when they strike the U.S. so that they don't affect the markets too much. Because Gerald called this. He said they was gonna hit Iran before they hit it. He said, "Oh, they'll probably hit Iran this weekend, and that same weekend is when they hit it. First strike." But yeah, you got it out.
That is it. You could, you know, well, hey, Lord willing, you know, this information, this lesson was edifying. And again, there's a lot happening other than this. And with this war, it's more that they're doing behind the scenes with this war. It ain't just that they fighting and shooting missiles. You know, Esau bringing forth, as as the dude said in this video right here, you know, Klaus Schwab said it. Matter of fact, Klaus Schwab has said it. And what they should have done in 3 to 4 years, I think he said they're doing it in 1 year. You know, so a lot is happening with this war. They're bringing forth a digital system. You know, as you see, they go use maybe a energy crash. You know, also World War III itself. You know, and with this happening, America allies separating from it. So it's so much going on, man. But the point is, like Apostle Hall said, and we can go out on this. If you miss one day, you can miss a lot. You know, you can miss a lot. So hey, stay dialed in. You know, speaking of myself first and foremost, keep our eyes open. And you know, Lord willing, hey, you know, this lesson was edifying. Until next time. Once again, we want to give all praises, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rafakwadash, and double honors unto the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, and as well as the men that taught them, and peace and blessings to all you Akim out there who pushing this word with truth and sincerity, and as well as to all you believers out there who believe in the gospel, you keep fighting, keep pushing, and we almost out here. And with that, shalom.
Shalom. Shalom.